Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Okay, mamas, I am so excited to bring you this episode. We are talking with Meagan Heaton, who, if you do not know, she is the owner of the VBAC Link, which is a really unique and special space for people who are seeking information on avoiding cesareans and having a VBAC. And so we talk about her own personal experience with VBAC and her cesareans and what that was like and what had motivated her to create the community that she has now. If you don't know, I have a special certification as a VBAC doula, and it is certified through the VBAC Link. So this is a long-awaited episode that I am just so excited to share and bring you so that you have this resource and this information and a little insight on VBAC if it is something that you are preparing for, or if you are just trying to avoid cesareans altogether, then this might be a really useful episode. So with that, let's get the episode started. All right. Hello, and welcome to Entering Motherhood. I am so excited to have you here and get this conversation started. I have, been in your world, connected with you. You were there along my VBAC journey, and then we've just continued to connect since. So how about, though, for people that do not know you and for those listening, you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for having me. And so my name's Meagan Heaton, and I am in the VBAC world. VBAC stands for vaginal birth after cesarean, and it was something that was inspired after I walked through the journey of having an unexpected C-section, which a lot of us do. We've got a really high cesarean rate here in the US, and so obviously a lot of people have been having C-sections and then wanting to know their options for birth after. And that's kind of where I dove in. I became a doula, so I'm a birth doula here in Utah. And a friend and I decided to start a company to help people all over the world, really now. We're outside of the US as well, to learn more about their options for birth after cesarean and share inspiring stories from people all over the world, who have done it.
Yeah.
So that's who I am and what I am about is VBAC.
Yeah.
Birth VBAC.
Yeah. So how about just try to briefly summarize, your own VBAC experience, like you said, like the unplanned cesarean and leading into VBAC. So how about you kind of just briefly kind of overview and catch us up on that?
Yes. So in a nutshell, first baby, I was young and was really excited to have a baby. Didn't do much research at all. Just kind of downloaded an app and went from there and ended up just, I had premature rupture of membranes, which is PROM, if anybody's ever seen that term or had that, and rushed right to the hospital because that's what everyone told me to do. And unfortunately didn't receive the support that I was hoping for and ended up having a C-section 12 hours later. Second baby wanted a VBAC. Really started diving into VBAC later in my pregnancy, but was really excited and felt like I could do it. Did not really switch providers or anything like that, but thought I could. And anyway, similar situation and walked down to the OR for the second C-section on that one. It was a much better experience. I got to watch my C-section, which is kind of weird for some people, but it was really great for me. And, after that birth, I started researching doula work and registered to become a doula before I even left the hospital. And then was really bound and determined to do everything I could to have a vaginal birth. So then I went on and found a new provider and new plans and doulas and all the great things and really dove in and educated myself a lot deeper and was able to have a VBA2C. So that's a vaginal birth after 2 cesareans. There's lots of terms, acronyms in the VBAC world. So really quickly, I'm just going to say a couple just in case you see these. So VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean. CBAC, cesarean birth after cesarean. VBAMC, vaginal birth after multiple cesareans. So usually that M has a number, 2, 3, 4, or more. HBAC, home birth after cesarean, and then RCS, repeat cesarean section.
Yep.
Yeah. So then I had my VBAC, and anyway, was on cloud 9, so excited, and that is where the VBAC Link was born.
That's so awesome. So when did you start taking clients? You said you after your second birth, you registered to be a doula and you were obviously not having your VBAC yourself at that point. So what was where did you kind of fall in preparing for your own VBAC and then supporting clients as a doula?
Yeah, so after I became a doula, it was kind of interesting because I actually went through a challenge of finding clients who wanted to hire me because I hadn't had a vaginal birth yet. Which is kind of something different. A lot of people don't really think about that, but a lot of people will say things like, "Hey, you haven't had a VBAC or a vaginal birth. How do you feel like you can support me?" And so I started shadowing. So I shadowed one birth and I left, and it was a really far away birth. I drove an hour and a half away to go to see this birth, and I just came back, and I was just jiving. I don't know how to explain. I was shaky and adrenaline and oh my gosh, I can do this.
Birth high.
Yes, I was so excited. I was I can't believe what I just witnessed. This was amazing. Yeah. And I knew it. I knew that I could support. And so I started right after that, kind of taking my own clients. And I think having seen that one birth gave me this confidence of I know how I can support you. Let me tell you how. So I started doing that, and then realizing I can do this. I can totally do this. And so many people told me I couldn't. I mean, many doctors told me I couldn't do this. And so that is kind of where I dove in. And so I started diving into personal experience of watching birth and understanding that, but then really diving into why I had my C-sections in general, because I think that's a really important thing to know. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then really finding that right provider. And that's when I was all these things are aligning to the point where I'm yes, I can do that. And then I decided, we're ready to have a baby. We're going to try all those things. And that's where I dove in deep. I mean, interviewing 12 doctors, kind of maybe obsessed a little bit, but I really wanted to make sure I found the right person, right? And and then I still switched actually in the middle of my pregnancy, even after finding my provider. But that's kind of the road to understanding that I could do this, seeing it, hearing it, listening to the stories, finding the education, breaking it down and being wait, why are people telling me I can't do this? And then having faith in myself.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of my journey, is really having faith in my own ability to get a baby out of my pelvis.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is such a huge thing. It's okay, yes, I've birthed a baby before. I've had 2 babies, but how is this baby going to, navigate through my pelvis? How is it going to come out of my vagina? You're really just it does get in your head of how is this logistically going to happen?
How?
And and it's as many births as you go to, as many people that you hear from, stories and stuff, I think that does still just sort of linger, but how?
I know. It's pretty, birth is incredible, but there's so many logistics to it that have to happen. And sometimes it just doesn't always happen the way that we want to, right? And so I also had to look back at my previous births, which I think is one of the biggest part of prepping for a VBAC, and really understand, one, offer myself grace. To offer myself grace and not kick myself in the butt for not doing whatever, or you know what I mean? The what ifs and all the things. And why did you do that? And why didn't you do that? So I'd offer myself grace and then really dive into me and what happened and why it happened. And as soon as I dissected that, I was oh, okay. So there are these things. I've been given this diagnosis, but I don't buy it. I think I can do this. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I'm going to be okay with that because I've done everything. But there were a lot of logistics to get my baby here. There are in every birth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we really do have to look and see how individualized it is and how unique we are. And we're not this perfect, walk-in hospital, like check off list or home birth, whichever like one
Yeah.
you're doing. Like we're not this, straightforward scenario. There's uniqueness to all of us. And when you can, like you said, like look at those things and really try to draw on like your own personal experience, but then your unique situation, like,
Yeah.
breech births, I think are huge as far as like cesareans as well
Oh,
too.
yeah.
But, maybe kind of break down like knowing what like what are common reasons that cesareans are happening?
Yeah. So breech for sure. There's a lot of sadness in the breech community that the art of breech birth has really just kind of fizzled out. And I hope that in time it comes back. But yeah,
Yep.
if breech is one of the number one reasons why a provider would suggest or tell someone they need to have a C-section. Failure to progress. Now, big air quotes, okay? Failure to progress. Anytime I say failure, just know I'm doing like ginormous air quotes because I don't like the word and I don't necessarily always believe in it. So failure to progress is a lot of the times like failure to wait, failure to allow the body to do what it needs to do instead of like pushing it, right? So when I say failure to progress, that means a cervix is maybe not dilating as fast as someone in the medical world wants it to, or if it's not effacing, or we're giving a lot of effort like with Pitocin and things to get labor going, but our body's not responding. So failure to progress, meaning our body's not doing it, or failure to descend. So our baby's not coming down. And a lot of the times it's not that our baby can't come down, it's that our baby's in a less ideal position. And we need to understand that and work through positioning ourselves to help our baby. But we're often given a CPD diagnosis, cephalopelvic disproportion, and that is where we're being told our pelvis is too small. That was me. That was one of the yep, and you're like, yep,
Yep.
yep. CPD, it's over. It's just given way too often. It's insane. But we believe that also it's common for us to be like, oh, our pelvis is too small. Women of strength is what I call our community. So I'm going to just address your community as women of strength. You are a woman of strength. Your pelvis is unlikely to be too small. Just wanted to say that out there. But yeah, so CPD or failure to descend. Now, there's also medical reasons why cesareans are happening, right? Maybe we've got a situation where it's really unsafe for the baby to be delivered via, vaginal delivery. And that's understandable. But we also throw out the big baby card, kind of goes in with the small pelvis. So for some reason, we do not believe that babies 10 plus pounds, 9 plus pounds, are able to get out vaginally. But we do know that is false. They can. But a lot of the times our babies are even being suspected to be too big and we're not even allowing labor to happen. And providers are saying you really should just have a vaginal birth or a cesarean instead of a vaginal birth. So that's another big, big reason why. So yeah, those are some of the
Yeah.
most common, right?
Yeah.
Fetal position, baby's not coming, cervix isn't dilating.
Yep,
And there's
and
so
sometimes
much
it's
more.
all kind of, like, all put together because I was failure to
Yeah.
progress, like, too small of pelvis, "Oh, you're so petite, like, you
Yep.
probably just can't have a baby vaginally," and it's so defeating to hear that and to be
Yeah.
like, "What are you talking about?" But then to also have that, like, inner voice saying, like, "But I know I can do this, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I want to
Yeah.
try," and I think that's, like, a lot of
Mhm.
times, like, us preparing for that VBAC or, like, saying, like, "I want to try," it is, like, you have to find that provider, you have to find that support system because it
Mhm.
it's hard to be in your own little bubble and be, like, hearing, like, all these, "Oh, no, you can't," and
Yep.
when you're like, Yes, I can, like, I know that I can." So, what
Yeah.
other things like, we kind of briefly talked on a few other ones, but what can we really do to prepare for a VBAC and really put ourselves, like, the best foot forward to be moving towards that VBAC?
Yeah, so I have like 4 or 5 that I think are staples, and there's tons of things in the world of preparing for VBAC, and a lot of the times preparing for a VBAC is just actually preparing for birth, just in general, but there's this extra thing with VBAC that we just have to do more because we have this previous cesarean over us. So mentally preparing. So I think mentally preparing is one of the biggest things you can do, and it's a lot of the time overlooked. So we actually talk about that in our course, like right off the bat, because it's overlooked. So if we can't mentally be prepared to enter into the preparing stage, does that make sense? We're not going in the right mind frame. And preparing looks different for everybody. So one, I think processing your previous birth is so important. Some people may kind of categorize their C-section as traumatic, and some people might not actually, right? It's always different. And even if you don't process it as traumatic, I think there's still it's still important to process. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think it's one of those things, like, even if you're just talking with a friend or someone that you know, or,
Yes.
if you get a doula, like, just talking through, like, what your previous birth was like, because
Yeah.
sometimes the more you retell it, the more things kind of come up and you're like, wait, like,
Yes.
I don't remember that. Or maybe, like, this does
Yep.
kind of play into part, or maybe I still am hung up on this. Like, it really
Yeah.
just helps to continue to, like, talk about it and work through it, or journaling, like, whatever
Yep.
level of processing is for you. It's just, you
Yes.
never know, like, what's gonna come up or what's actually, like, subconsciously lingering, that
Mhm.
it's just helpful to really just sort of work through that.
Yes. So when I like to talk about our senses when we're processing our birth, so like seeing, feeling. So this is a weird thing when I say feeling, but like physically writing it down and feeling the words that you're putting on that paper. And then reading it, seeing it with your eyes, reading it in your head, and then going a step further and reading it out loud so you're hearing it. And I want you to listen to how you are reading it, because a lot of the times how you're feeling comes out in your words and how you speak. And I think that will help you understand what you need to process. And then, like you said, like talking it out, sharing the story multiple times, and realizing what your mind keeps going to, what you keep focusing on. And whatever you're hyper focusing on, that should probably be processed. So, processing is a huge, huge, huge key. And I think it's important for not only the person who gave birth to process, but the birth partner that was in the room to process. My husband and I did not process together. And he said some things to me, and I was like, wait, what? Like, whoa, we are so out of tune here. And I realized, like, he processed the birth very differently than I processed the birth. And so I think talking about that together is really, really important. And anyone that was in that room, understanding too, like through processing and working through mentally, understanding why. I talked about that a minute ago, but this is one of my number one keys when I suggest prepping is getting your op reports, physically getting your op reports and having them in your hand and researching them. Whether you have a doula that helps you go through them, a friend that helps you, because you guys, sometimes the terminology, it's wonky and it's hard to understand and it's overwhelming. So sometimes we do that. I work with people, I do consults and like just go over deciphering through their op reports, but understanding what was said about you, right? And then processing that. So yeah, and then understanding what you're wanting. So mentally tuning into what you're wanting to change for your next birth. And then physically prepping as well. So we need to physically prepping is not just like running 12 miles every day. Like being healthy, yes, like be active, like really physically prep with your nutrition and all of that. But there's more physical prep, even like chiropractic care, pelvic floor therapy. A lot of people don't think that they've had a C-section, and so they're like, "Yeah, my vagina's good." No, guys, I don't need that. But there's a lot more, and there's even internal scar massage that can happen before pregnancy and things like that. So really diving into that like physical aspect. And so it's like we're mentally prepared and then our body's physically prepared. We're stronger, we're better nourished, and then inside and out, we're prepared. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, scar massage, I knew nothing about until I was preparing for
Mhm.
my VBAC. There was no protocol of what to do after my cesarean as far as,
Mhm.
like, my incision. It was just, "Oh, be gentle with it. Like, take good care of it." Well, how? What do you mean like,
I
it
know,
was
like,
like,
keep
and,
it
like, I was,
clean,
like,
okay.
nervous to ask and, like, thought that was, like, oh, like, if I don't know how to, like, take care of my own, like, scar, then, like, they obviously think that I know how to do this.
Yeah,
So it led
yeah.
me, like, Googling like what to do or how to take care. Like I just was nervous the whole time. And it took a while, even, afterwards to feel comfortable with the mobility of it, just,
Yeah.
being in my own body. Like, so like that kind of physical preparation too. I think a lot of the times I get clients that ask like, well, how long in between like my previous like cesarean and like a VBAC, like what's a good time frame? And so like I think that has a lot to do with just like all the internal healing and the scar healing and things like that, because you did have major abdominal surgery. You have that
Yes.
incision. So like you have to like be mindful of that.
Yeah. And something that is not very educated on out there is how once you have a cesarean, we have l- a higher likelihood of adhesions, dense adhesions that actually reoccur through lifetime. Like there have been women who are in their 60s and they're like, I have this back pain and it just won't go away. And they like dig through, and after work, the provider's like, it's because you have adhesions from your cesarean scar that you had, 50 years ago or whatever. I mean, not really 50, my math is awful. No one had a 10-year-old baby or a baby at 10 years old. But you know what I mean? Like years
Right.
and years ago,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
impacting them and they didn't even know that. And so it's crazy how we're not taught that scar massage is important for life after like mobilization, after a
Yeah.
cesarean. And we're waiting, and we're getting dense adhesions and scar tissue because that's what happens anytime you have any sort of cut. I mean, you can go out and cut your arm and that's going to happen inside, right? But when we're talking about a cesarean, there's so many layers, it's so deep. So we gotta talk about these things and address these things. And it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like, obviously if like you're looking for it, like if you've like found this podcast, you find Megan's podcast, like it's just like it's out there, but it's not like the
Yeah.
providers aren't typically like, hey, you just had a
Mhm.
cesarean, like go ahead and like research on scar massage, or here's some like information. And if you do, like that's a amazing provider. Like,
Yeah,
like
kudos
that's
to
a awesome,
them.
right. But the majority of us are just kind of like sat home, like goodbye. You're raising this little baby, plus like you have all of these things that you're, not being told about.
Yeah. I mean, it was not until my third baby that I really learned about that. And I was pretty pregnant when I kind of found about it, so I had to be careful with what I was doing. But then I did scar mobilization after my VBAC and couldn't believe how tight it actually was.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's a really big one. So, mentally, physically, educationally, you guys, if we have the education, it's going to help us no matter what. Like, it just is going to help us. So, know the education of both repeat cesarean, of VBAC going like, so TOLAC, here's another word for you guys, TOLAC, trial of labor after cesarean. A lot of the providers out there will say that. It can be a triggering word for some because it's like, no, I'm not trying, I'm doing this. But just know that it's a medical term, TOLAC. So if you're having a trial of labor after a cesarean and then it goes to a cesarean, learn the education there, and then learn the risks and benefits of VBAC too. Like learn all of it so you can have a confident decision of what you're making along the way. Even when plans change, like know your options. The education is power. It just is in life, in anything. Education is power. So educate yourself. Provider is another huge one because if we don't have that supportive provider, it can be a fight. It can be a fight. And that's just the blunt truth, you guys. It can be a fight to have your VBAC. And when you're in that already vulnerable state, you don't want to be fighting. You just don't. And unfortunately, also the harsh truth is that the lack of support out there is high. Like there's a very large lack of support and it sucks. And I encourage our providers to do better. I do better. Like support people in this because it is absolutely reasonable to want to go on and have a vaginal birth and not have a repeat cesarean.
Yeah.
And it sucks that it has to be so hard, but find a supportive provider. And guess what? If you find a supportive provider and then they are maybe not so supportive and their tune changes, it's okay to change. Know that too. It is
Yeah.
okay to change. It's daunting. I know it's daunting, but it's okay to change. So finding a supportive provider. And my number one key in why you're looking for a provider is ask open-ended questions, not yes or no. Anyone can say yes, anyone can say no. Ask open-ended question and then tune into your intuition.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to that as someone that
Like finding a provider?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I know, like, a lot of times people be like, "Oh, we don't have a lot of options here," and I get that, and, like, I feel for the people, like, I mean, here in Greenville, South Carolina, like, we have an endless supply of, like, options, and, like, we have,
Yes.
midwives, birth centers, home births,
Yeah.
hospital birth, whatever kind of you want. I feel like the amount of people are here, and, like, maybe you do have to get a little bit out of your area or
Yeah.
navigate, like, what it looks like to move. Like, I had a client who was living in Kenya who moved back to South Carolina to birth her baby.
Yeah.
And, like, that's what it's like. You really have to say, like, how important is this to you? And, like, what are you willing to do to, like, find somebody who is going to be there to support you? And, like, obviously, I always recommend, like, getting a doula. I think, like, it could just
Yep.
be so helpful, but, we are up against that provider as well, and it can be a fight in some situations like that. Like, we don't
Yeah.
want to have a fight. We don't want to, like, cause any, like,
Mhm.
tension and stuff, and we want it to be, like, smooth as possible, but it's, also having the conversations, having those open-ended questions, and having the hard conversations now, early on, and getting through that so that you don't have to have those hard conversations later, and you are scrambling to find somebody and switch. Like, know that, like, this person that you're choosing, provider, doula, whoever, like, you are choosing them to be in that bubble with you and to really, like, dive in through it and, like, be open and honest with them as well.
Yes.
Maybe, like, how you're feeling, what you're going through, how
Yeah.
important it is to you,
Yeah.
because
And
it's yeah.
yeah, and understand too that if you're not jiving or they're not jiving with what you're wanting to, it might be the best for you guys to separate. Even though you're like, I love you, you're so great, but like actually might be best for both of you. And as far as traveling, I wanted to add to that. I also had some clients so I'm in Utah, and we had quite a few clients travel from Moscow, Russia, and move here literally just to have their baby and
Yeah.
then move back. And different states. We've had people travel and do Airbnb situations, and it sounds crazy, you guys. I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes that's what it's worth for some people. So diving into that, tuning into what you need, right? Back into that mental space that I was telling you about. Tune into what is important to you. But yeah, your provider is someone you're hiring, and they should be on your team, not against you.
Right.
And so if you're feeling at any point like your provider's against you, maybe reassess, and you owe it to yourself to do what's best for you. I didn't change with my second baby. I stayed at the same provider I mentioned. I didn't change because I felt like I was going to cheat on him. I know that sounds so weird because we weren't in like a romantic relationship, but I was cheating on my provider who said he told me he would support me in a VBAC. He said the words, yes, I will do that. So why would I change? Why would I cheat on him and leave or
Yeah.
betray him? But in the end, that's probably what I needed to do to have my vaginal birth. Obviously, it's what I needed to do, right? I went on and had my vaginal birth with a different provider, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's so hard, it's tricky, but like you were saying, like early on, if you can establish that early on, then it saves you from the hassle.
Yeah.
And then like you said, so another like tip that I think is so great, and I know that not everyone can do it, but if you can, if it's within your means or whatever, hire a doula. Hire a doula. It is so impactful. Yes, you can VBAC without a doula. That's a common question. Yes, you can. I don't want to like make it sound like it's worthless to try for a VBAC if you don't have a doula. But I will say doulas, I mean, there are actual statistics on doulas, but doulas really do impact a
Yeah.
birth in a positive setting. They do decrease the chances of cesarean, decreases the chance of interventions, decrease the time of labor, all of these things. And so if you can, hire a doula. it's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. Always for, doula support. And
Yeah.
I think it's like one of those things, again, like you just have to say, like, what do I want this to look like? And like, does it make sense to
Mm,
have like another person in my space or like who is going to play? Cause sometimes, there might be like a friend or like mom or a mother in law, like somebody else who's going to be in that space that's like almost playing that role. They might not be,
yeah.
obviously educated in the birth world, like be up to date on all like policies and things like that. But like if that's like what you're looking for, then like they can be your like honorary doula,
Yeah.
if you will. But like, yeah, I think it's just like really kind of like saying like what your birth plan looks like and how you see that fitting in. And again, like finding somebody like most of the time there are VBAC specific doulas in your area. There are people that then you say like, hey, like what providers do you recommend to have the
Yep.
best shot at a VBAC? So like it's almost like you're starting sometimes with a doula and
Yeah.
then you're
Yep.
finding all of the other, like you were saying, like pelvic floor therapy, chiropractic care. Like
Yes.
we are connected with all of those people that are going to know like
Mhm.
and be a good option for you. So sometimes it's like, hey, like find a doula and then
Yeah.
like everything else is going to like fall into place because like they know the
Yes.
connections, they know the options, they've seen it, they've been around it and they're like local to you.
Yeah.
It can always be a
And
great
there
resource.
are ways to hire there are ways to get help. So Be Her Village, if you've never heard of them, they are like a registry platform and you can actually register for a doula. And there are a lot of people that actually get their doulas paid for. So you
Yep.
can do that. If you're having, baby number 2 and maybe you don't need a lot of these things, you can ask people to pitch in for that. Like I had a client who a couple years ago, the mom paid. The mom's like, "I want you to have this birth.
Yep.
I know it's a," and the mom was like so happy to pay for their doula, which I know is sometimes hard to ask, but there are other ways too
Yeah.
that can help. And like you said, like there are so many, like we have a VBAC directory at the VBAClink.com where you can actually find VBAC certified doulas in your
Yeah.
area who are trained and certified. And then, like you said, so connected in the birth world and can
Yeah.
help you and take a lot of that angst away of like, am I feeling overwhelmed? I don't know. You still have to do the research, you guys. They're going to give you a name and you still have to do that research and tune into
Yeah.
that intuition and see if that provider's right for you. But it is sometimes very helpful to just be like, "Oh, here's my list of names. I get to go
Right.
see these," versus, like,
Yeah.
finding, a fish in a really big sea.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's just there's so much and like you said, like it's just kind of like preparing for any other birth, but we do have that previous cesarean sort of just
Mhm.
lingering, like other people want to put like a bigger shadow on it than it needs to be and
Yeah. I feel like we walk in with a neon sign above
yeah.
our heads.
Right.
Previous cesarean,
Yeah.
and it's like, "Yes, I know we have a previous cesarean, but we're actually just
Yeah.
people coming in to have babies."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
actually just all we are. We're just this one and the same, but it's just not viewed that way, and that's just the unfortunate truth. Like, we're just not viewed the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, do you have any other final tips or tricks for someone that is preparing for a VBAC?
One of my final tips would be find your community. When you are going through a VBAC journey, it can be emotional and there can be a lot of naysayers. It's easy for someone to say, like, "Why would you do that? That's so scary." Or, how selfish. Like, I was told I was selfish for wanting to have a vaginal birth, especially after 2 C-sections. And it can be very hard to navigate that. And so find your community. Sometimes that means taking a social media break, completely getting off social media. Sometimes that means not sharing your full desire and birth plan with everyone you see. Sometimes that's just joining a VBAC specific community. We have one for the VBAC link, and I love it because these people just build one another up, and it's so great. But really protecting your space and putting yourself in a nice protected bubble. I know that sounds like frou-frou, weird, kind of impossible, but if you have a whole bunch of people that are very negative coming at you, it's really hard to stay in that positive space. And it's really easy to like doubt your decisions when we shouldn't be doubting our decisions. We should be confident in our decisions. So, really finding your community.
Yeah. I love
whatever that
that.
looks like for you.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so much out there, and, like, obviously, like, we have communities and there's other things, and, like, whatever capacity that looks like for you,
Mhm.
like, local, online, like, wherever you stand, like, even if it's just somebody that you know that is, like, in the similar situation, like,
Yeah.
having somebody to bounce those ideas off of and
Mhm.
have that sense of community, I think is super, like,
It's impactful.
yeah, super
It really
impactful.
yeah, and then having those positive stories coming in your like,
Yeah.
listening to podcasts like this or, my podcast or other podcasts where they're sharing stats. Because, again, it comes back to that education, like, even if the naysayers are coming in, but you know the facts, you're not
Yeah.
gonna let that impact you so much.
Yeah.
So, it really is this, like, whole circle of things that we have to do, but you guys, you're amazing, your body's amazing, your babies are amazing, and yes, VBAC is possible. You could totally do it.
Yes. Cool. So you mentioned your podcast and
Mhm.
obviously like I know all about it, but like let us know like where we can find your podcast, where else you hang out on social media, how we can get in contact with you, what you have going on.
Yes, so the podcast is the VBAC link, and VBAC is VBAC, so you can really find that on anywhere you listen to your podcast in just anywhere. So the VBAC link, and then we're really just mainly like social media wise, like Facebook and Instagram, the VBAC link, or we have that private community where it's just a whole bunch of like-minded people looking to gather information, and that's the VBAC link community on Facebook. And then we also have a CBAC link community. So maybe your VBAC didn't go as planned, or maybe you decided you don't, you're just not sure and you want to learn more about CBAC. With the women that have things about CBAC, you can go to the CBAC link community as well. And then we have blogs. And like I said, VBAC Doula, we have a course, we have a resource page, and we have a provider page that we've been collecting for all the years where we have people that are like, oh my gosh, this provider was amazing. And so we put them in. Now, I want to just tell you, I have not met 99.9% of these providers personally. It is actually physically impossible for me to fly over the world and interview these providers. So you still have to interview these providers, but we do have that for a starting point as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming and chatting and telling your story
Yes.
and giving us some insight on how to prepare for VBAC.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. And, I can always talk about VBAC for hours and hours.
Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button, share this episode with a friend, message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.